Good morning, everybody. Just got a minute to go before I ask Haku to open with the Karakia, but just a wee bit of warning. The meeting, I think, has been well set out. Thank you, Jenna, for that. It's all fine. I think we are just going to follow through. Mo has probably put on your table some late papers. We will receive those, but probably just restrict the discussion to receiving those because there is a workshop on local water done well for the committee at 1 p.m. So the papers are more relevant to that. So we'll receive them so that they're on the record, but they will be effectively there. Oh, there's John. I was about to say John may or may not be an attendee. So John, welcome to the meeting. So
morning all.
Whereabouts in the country are you, John?
Your part of the country normally.
I know, snow on the ground?
A little bit of it, probably down around 700, something like that.
I've seen pictures from my house with snow all around it, so I'm quite glad to be here in Thames. So there we go. So look, John, great to have you here as well. So full attendance, we'll get through the meeting, and I say 2.1, just a wee bit of change. Papers really there for receiving. We'll pick those up in the workshop at 1 p.m. And the rest will follow through. And given you're here, John, which is tremendous, I'd like to propose that we commence the meeting and invite Paku. It's gone. Thank you, Paku, to start with the Karakia, please.
Tūtaua mai I runga, tūtaua mai I raro, tūtaua mai I roto, tūtaua mai I waho. Kia tau ai te mauri tū, te mauri ora, ki te katoa, haumi e, hui e, tai ki e.
Thank you, Paku. Righty, well, I think in that case, we have no apologies. We've got a full turnout, which is tremendous. Thank you for honouring the meeting with that. I think just to note, Glenn, you've indicated that you won't be able to stay for the workshop, but I don't think we need to have an apology for that here. No public forum, Jenna, which is tremendous. Items not on the agenda. Well, we did have it, a local water's done well. The papers have changed, but I'm not treating that as a new agenda item, and I've indicated where that's at. Any matters coming up you want to note your interest for? No? Good. I would just note, and I think it's reasonably public, that long past association with Morris and Lowe, when we get to matters, probably under litigation and inquiries, but I'm comfortable that it doesn't impact on my ability to be in the room. Minutes for confirmation. We have the minutes of the last meeting. Just forgotten the date. It was in May, 29 May. There we go. So I'm going to move from the chair. We take those as a true and correct report. Thank you, Terry. Is there any comment, discussions on them at all? Being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. In terms of bringing up from the action, I've got a list here. There were 4 items. 3 of them have been completed because they come up in terms of our reports coming up. The only one that's in progress is a half-year performance report on water loss. Mo, I don't know whether there's anything you wanted to say on that other than it's in progress. And I think we get to see it later on. So I don't think there's a need to focus too much on that. Mo, anything you want to say to that or your team? No? Okay. Rightio, let's keep moving then on to health, safety, I'm going to say assurance report, but we'll call it this health and safety report, but it's assurance. Thank you, Paku. Appreciate that.
Okay, through the chair, I'd like to say that this report be read. Just want to draw to your attention a couple of things. Personal confrontation has been a big focus for us due to the elections and increased levels of personal confrontation in offices, particularly in libraries and in Thames. So in winter months, This is when people frequent our libraries, and that's where we've been exposed. So in fact, it's been incidents where public upon public has happened in the libraries. So that's an interesting thing. I expect that these people are going in there just to keep warm. So that's an interesting fact. We have increased our security and guarding in some instances where we find that there might be there could be a risk of personal confrontation. So in particular, things like specific meetings that there could be being held that we think, oh, there's a potential for something to kick off. But also if we're doing things like compliance work and we know of a situation that might play out in one of our offices due to that sort of work, then we'll put some guarding in place just to give that added level of protection for our staff. In terms of our vehicles and speeding, we're starting to hone in on particular people that are offenders, and of course our managers are really good with having those sorts of discussions with them. That's the expectation, that managers of staff discuss these where they are overspeeding, etc. Another thing that's shown up through the report is slips, trips and falls. We've had an increase in those, primarily because of our surface conditions around in the winter months, and in particular with people visiting sites. Surfaces that are soft, muddy, that sort of stuff. So we have sent some targeted communications around that. And also just mossy footpaths, etc. Building sites, they can all be problematic at this time of the year. So yes, the other thing, just to highlight, is we've just hired a new health and safety business partner through Will, our previous one, resigning, and she starts on 1st of September, and she comes from an infrastructure contracting background, which is going to be really good and useful from a PCBU perspective. So that's the health and safety report. Are there any questions?
Hey, thanks for that, Paku. We appreciate that as always. Good report. Paku, we have questions for Paku.
Yeah.
No. Terry, please.
Yeah.
So Mexican standoff here.
Paku, just a quick one. Just to read around the development of a crowded spaces policy. Can you give us a little bit of a overview of what that means?
Yes, this policy here is one that we've been working on. We haven't quite got it over the line, but it's an interesting one. In other areas, we've had lots of groups of people might come in and protest, or might be upset about a particular situation that's played out, and all come at once to the council offices. And so we're looking at how we can look at processes around that and the management of that. And look at this, a lot of this is about following what's going on in the local environment, keeping a track of things like social media and what could be playing out around those areas. Yeah.
So it's still developing.
Yes, we're still.
Okay, so it'll be good to have a look at that when you get it done.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Terry. John.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick question, Parker. With speeding vehicles with our monitored fleet, do you get a notification instantly as soon as the car hits 111 kilometres an hour and then drops back, or is it a sustained breach that we pick up?
Yes, interesting you should bring that up. I have been looking for trends in sustained.
Yeah.
So where people are they're taking one trip and you notice 3 or 4 times that they've oversped, which means that, if it's a one-off, it's a one-off. But I'm actually particularly honing in on those that are doing several times, where they're pushing the limits, basically. So yes, but we don't get that information till after the fact. So we'll just get a report and it'll say 14th of July, this driver had this car and there were 5 instances where they were over the speed limit over a period of an hour's driving or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
So that, yeah.
Yeah, the only reason I raise that is sometimes it's safer to pass a little quicker and then drop back into the, so that's fine. The other one is you're still analysing all this data, and it'd be interesting to just ensure that the staff are not under such pressure that they feel they have to actually go too quick. So we're just hoping the organisation's not putting them under that sort of pressure where they feel they need to get to a job quickly.
Yeah. I'll respond to that. I think, look, managers actually manage this process in terms of that discussion. So really, I think it's a consideration that they need to kind of think about as they're having that conversation with their staff member too. Yeah.
And I just raise a small point. Driving down this morning, we were so surprised. Well, the weather wasn't that good, even though it was daylight. But how many cars in this area do not have lights on? It's just extraordinary, and it's so dangerous. And whether that should be something out there saying, remember, turn your lights on, because we couldn't see cars coming until they were right there with trucks with splash coming up. And it's sure there must have been older cars, but there were obviously a lot of older cars here. We had 20 in a row, no lights on.
Yes, that is a problem, definitely.
Thank you. Other questions, please, Peter, and then Rika.
Thanks. Thanks for the report, Paku. Just a couple of questions. First one, with the staff dealing with the public and confrontationally, the report says that we are looking to, but has to this point, have staff had any training in de-escalation, and do we provide in each of our location a sort of side room or something where people can be taken in to air their concerns?
Yeah, these are considerations through the chair. We part of the process is for them after an incident, following an incident, there's a debrief process. So actually, we've got, so that they can actually voice their concerns about that particular incident. In terms of training, we actually held a de-escalation training just the other day, in fact, and we focused on the people most at risk. So our library staff, our Thames staff, and our people that are in the governance team currently because of the elections process and stuff like that. So we are targeting that personal confrontation to people that are most exposed to that risk. Yeah, to that
Thank you.
hazard.
And just the other question relates to the health and safety site audits of the water treatment facilities. Was that who did that audit? Was it the contractor who did that audit, or was us?
No, we were called in to do that audit, just over concerns around their practices. So Will, actually my health and safety business partner, did that audit, and those findings are now with the contract managers to work through with those contractors.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rika.
Thanks for your report, Paku. Just a quick question around, so we looked at the incidences around vehicles, and you talked about speeding. Does the system track other things in terms of like following closely, or is these all speeding incidents?
Yes, unfortunately, I don't think the we have that sort of technology to check on the speed, that distancing.
So it only looks at speeding?
Just speeding.
Okay, because there are systems that are in place that look at that other things.
Yes, I'm not sure that the people that we use for fleet have that sort of technology yet. But that's an interesting one, and I could probably question that from our fleet people. Yeah.
Rightio. Thank you. Oh, yes, Martin.
Just had one very quick question. So a couple of times in the report around the personal confrontation, it talks about police being called. Do you have information about how promptly that's responded to? And if when the police are called, there's it's going to be 30 minutes or whatever, presumably there's a process in place for staff to not act as the police, but make sure that things are safe?
Yes, through the chair, yes. We have had a mixed result in terms of response times. The other day we had a situation play out in Thames. They were very quick, which is interesting in itself. And they took over the situation. In terms of our staff, they have been trained in personal confrontation. We do look to our leaders to step up and manage the situation as best as they can. Look, it's a random thing, and I don't think we can ever. Our officers are designed as such where they can pull away from a situation. And of course, we've got the perspex going up, and we're putting all of those sorts of hard controls in place around the design of the office. But there's a whole lot of different controls that come into play. That's all I can say around this. And calling the police is one of those controls.
Yeah, I was encouraged because I sort of inadvertently walked right through the middle of the thing kind of while it was happening. But the policeman, one of the policemen was there, sort of nodded at me, so I thought it was all right. And then in behind, there was, I think Brian was there and a number of other staff members were there, so it looked well supported from that point of view. Interesting in itself is that the interesting thing about the situation there is that it's not always someone yelling. That could be it can be just someone trying to access the building, and they do it in a way that's calm, collected, but still they're trying to do something that's underhanded. So it's not always obvious.
That's thank you for that, Martin. Actually, it just makes you realise that inadvertently you saw health and safety at work and able to verify it. It's actually an important obligation on duty holders. So well done, mate. You can put that one down as an audit. Len.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to do a personal thank you to the staff who intervened when that sovereign citizen guy harassed me directly, and Jay and the team down there immediately stepped in and put a barrier between him and me and got me in the elevator. The police were called, obviously, but I was gone before they arrived. But their actions were outstanding, and I just want to say thank you to them. They were fantastic.
Thanks, Len. It's actually been a very good discussion, Paku, just to characterise both the driving and the confrontation, the nature of actually what it's like for staff out there. And I just think that's sobering for us as a committee just to hear that. So I think there's probably a general appreciation that staff are dealing with some difficult situations, which probably most of us don't have to deal with in our day-to-day lives. So thank you for that. Just I just really wanted to follow up. I think it was possibly you, Rika, that raised the issue. I would be interested that we do receive back how the water treatment plant audit went or was received by our operators. Combined PCBU, it raises all those sorts of good questions around what is the nature of our relationship and indeed how's our contractor performing around a PCBU. So look, obviously I take it at this stage you're waiting on a response or you're working with them over a response. The committee would be interested in actually what is not necessarily the nuts and bolts and detail of the response, but actually if you think about it, Paku, from a systems perspective, that indeed, A, we're doing the right stuff, B, they're doing the right stuff in that combined PCBU sense. We have, good systems operating where we can do these sorts of audits, get response and understand the situation, which is great. Right, do we have any other questions I'm about to say for Terry. I don't know why I was about to say Terry. For Paku, no, that's good. Thank you for that, mate. There's nothing on the actual events in terms of the schedule at the back that you wanted to raise. They are what they are at this point. Great, thank you. So the motion is that we receive it. I'll move in a second, please. Thank you, Deli. Thank you, Peter. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Now, of course, as always, I'm trying to keep things at a pace, and I overlooked what I said was a new item, which was we were to receive under essentially one of these papers, which are relevant for essentially our workshop this afternoon. So I just want to check, Mo, was there anything in particular you wanted to say in relationship to the papers that have been tabled at this point? Right. Right. So a chance to probably over lunch to have a quick refamiliarisation and gander at it before we get into the workshop. Okay. In that case, I'm going to move from the chair that we receive the papers. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Terry. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those against, it's carried. That's great. It's on the record. Next, Paku, the assurance report.
Through the chair, I take the report as read. I do want to draw to your attention in this report that we've delivered on the program project management review, specifically looking at the use of the framework that had been implemented and the new tool that was implemented as well. These two things are really key in terms of getting projects across the line, making sure that we follow systems and disciplines. And what we did find in here is that those two things do provide a really good structure and clarity and visibility around those projects where they didn't potentially have that in the past. So that's that. A couple of things that we did pick up on here is just some low findings. So while you've got the project program team working away and delivering on projects on behalf of some of our other teams, there's a connection between maybe it's parks and reserves and they transfer information into the project team in which they carry out a project on their behalf. So the low findings are around ensuring that the other teams that are engaging with the project program team are well versed in the framework as well, implementation of that framework and the systems they use. So it's just it's others outside of the program that need to know about these things and their use, so that the project team are just they're receiving good information at the outset. And that's really all I have to say about that. Yeah. So are there any questions around that?
So this is around the internal audit of the program approach. Do we have questions? Yes, Terry.
Yes, thanks, Paku. I really, really think this is fantastic. I think this is one of the key areas that we've over the past few years that really need to be addressed. So really support this project, and it looks like it's kicking off in the right direction, which is fantastic. And having that flow of information coming from the side so they're not working in silos is really important. Just the Monday.com, I'm not quite sure what that program is. Can you give us some, is that just add on to the PPM?
No, I'm not an expert on IS systems, but it's an information system and it keeps the budgets and it tracks a whole lot of plethora of information in there, but mainly around tracking of the projects, where they're at,
right,
time-wise and financial-wise.
Okay.
So
no, I really support this. I think this will help our chief executive get to the results she wants at the end of the year. So looking forward to seeing this work professionally. So thank you.
Terry, other questions for Paku? Paku, just probably a question from me. We're comfortable at this stage, and I'm looking particularly at that if you do or increase the understanding of teams. So this is the bottom two bullet points. For pre-project information being provided will be eliminated, as well as also lack of clarity around project information. So, I mean, that's actually, I think, what we're saying here about people's familiarity and use of the existing systems. So I presume in terms of the internal audit work done, we are comfortable that presumably through Monday.com, such things as supporting information like the financial information, which is relevant to obvious budget control over projects, etc. The systems are talking to each other and are linked.
Sorry, my understanding is that they are.
Yeah.
And yes, I maybe I could run back on that, to be honest. My understanding is they are.
Yeah. Look, happy if you want to provide a view to the committee later. I just want to make, it's the old story. One thing, I mean, I get the thrust of this report is getting everybody using basically what is a good system. I'm just wanting to test that the foundation of the system is working. And that those, to be honest, from my experience, a common problem is particularly financial information being linked with project management.
I can confirm that it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Brilliant.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. No, that's good.
There's no thing in my mind that it is linked.
Yeah. Okay, that's good. The other thing then is it's great to have this report out. We are, I think, and I'm reflecting a wee bit on what Terry said. We're in a new financial year. Obviously, there's a need. We're doing projects and programs now. What does it take for us to be happy that actually the information, knowledge, and understanding is eliminated, and we are all using it?
Can you just ask that question again? Sorry.
How do I know? What
Yes.
assurance can I have that you've eliminated the lack of understanding right across the organisation, so everybody is using this program?
Okay. So, yeah, well, that's about testing, rechecking to see that people's understanding is correct around its use.
Yeah.
And secondly, really, that's so my understanding is that Luke from our program team is he's got a part of his improvement program is to ensure everybody is on board.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really checking on that improvement program to make sure everybody has got that same understanding.
Yeah.
To be honest, so it's about going back and checking that
Brilliant.
and rechecking that.
I think Aileen's going to make a comment as well. Go for it. Yeah, no, I'll be very happy to receive it.
Okay, so this is a journey, and we have spent the last 12 months deciding what our requirements for this program were, going through the procurement of it, procuring it, doing some work to get it embedded, and I think the project delivery team are all over it and using it quite well.
Yeah.
But the rollout to the rest of the organisation is happening over time. So I guess it's landing where the big dollars are,
Yeah.
and it's functioning from what I can understand well in those areas. But we do still have to roll out into the rest of the organisation and improve its uptake.
Brilliant. No, that's fine.
And I just say we have come a long way in 12 months.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. So I take on board the point, Aileen and Paku, that the big stuff, which clearly is where, given I've just been to Wellington, you can imagine what's going on in Wellington at the moment around certain projects. They're the big things that actually we need to control. The issue I guess I'm thinking of here is that the world isn't standing still. We've got lots of projects to deliver in the course of the year. So there is some emphasis to get everybody working on this rather than just a few. But having whatever the right quantification is, the reality of it is the big stuff we've got under control under this, which is great. It'll be good to see at some later point that is it Luke? That's right, Luke can come back and say to us, "Hey, it's rolled out," which would be great. Thank you. Tremendous, Len.
Thank you. Couple of things on page 25, Paku, and just clarifications, please. You've got autoresponder devices at both airfields. Devices have been installed. What are they? What's an autoresponder?
So on planes, they have there's a system where when plane comes in, it tracks that plane, or it's got this technology that identifies that particular plane coming in.
Okay.
So the technology at the airfield can click into that particular plane, any plane that comes in. So it's that sort of technology. So we know what's landing.
Right.
That machine is picking up that signal of that plane and understanding who it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. And next question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Just below that, consider a move to no longer accepting cash as a payment method, and I'm assuming that's places like the transfer stations. Where else are we not accepting cash?
It's primarily the transfer stations, but also potentially things like collecting for the wharves for consideration, collecting for the parking machines and those sorts of things. There's quite a number of plethora of places that you might put a cent in or a couple of dollars in. But primarily it's that. We've found that the library, there's kind of no getting away from cash at specific places, and the cost benefit is not worth it. So it's a bit of a push-pull with deciding whether to take it out altogether. But the main thing is not to have cash on site, because it opens us up to another risk.
Thanks, Bucky. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Well, what about the rubbish? I know Whangamata, you can put coins in to drive off the black bag, which a lot of people do. Not that I do, but a lot of people do. Is that going to stop?
I'm not aware that that's going to stop.
Okay.
Yes, Darling.
If I may jump to page 27, and I'm just looking at community proposals. So just to clarify, is that a response to the likes of the Pawanui Tairua River Trail and the Bluff Track type of thing, where the community has seen a need and wants to sort of design but work with council? And I see that's probably Jeanette. Yeah.
I guess
So I'm correct.
I guess that is an example, but there's a whole lot.
Yeah,
That's just one.
there is a
That's-
lot. Yeah, I'm just thinking.
It's gone wide.
Yeah, because
And that's
this is a real need or a gap, and we've had pressure on staff to respond on things that are community generated.
If I could comment on it, that this is about the, what we call them, the off-balance sheet liabilities. Anything that will create a liability to us in the future, and about setting up some provisions so that we fully understand that when we commit ourselves to it. There's a project team wrapped around that now, and as you say, Jeanette is the project sponsor for that.
Really happy to hear that. That's awesome.
Great. Any other questions or comments? Paco, I don't know whether you necessarily provided full comment on the rest of the paper, so I'm very glad my colleagues are there in front of us. Just one thing I wanted to go back, two things actually, page 24, just with the overall program. I think in effect, there will be just a slight hangover with there is a slight hangover from 24-25 into this year, but otherwise resourcing and progress is okay from your perspective?
Yes, and we are looking at the whole plan.
Yep.
And looking for your input, in fact, and understanding. So we're looking at the whole assurance program for the next 2 years.
Great.
But we want to make sure everybody is engaged that needs to be engaged in terms of what are the risks, key risks, and make sure that we have got a program of internal audits that really give you people assurance that we're covering on making the best use of our resources in the insurance.
The obvious follow-up, when do you think that'll be coming back? Because we are in a new financial year now. Is that the sort of thing you might bring back to our next meeting?
Yes.
Tremendous. Thank you, Parker. The other thing then, which is just, it's minor, and it's not one that I think committees around the country are overly vexed with right at the moment, is insurance renewals, mainly because the environment seems pretty benign. In fact, I've even heard it seriously suggested that insurance premiums could go down. That takes a wee bit of pressure off the fiscal elements of insurance renewal, rather than necessarily are we carrying the right level of risk. But I think this is really saying it's business as usual for us this year. Okay.
It is.
Yeah.
But with anything, it could change. So we have to be on top of our game, is I guess the message as well.
Yeah.
For next year and the year after. I think it's just
yeah.
a constant understanding what the market's doing.
Yeah. And I think ultimately it does come back to what is the state of our strategy, which is, as I said, insurance is a matter of risk ownership or risk transfer, ideally transfer, but of course at what cost?
Yes.
So
Correct.
there needs to be a bit of an assessment. I'm reasonably relaxed because I'm conscious that 1 November will be one of the rollover dates for us coming up, and there aren't many meetings and what have you. So I'm comfortable that the conditions currently are benign, but I would suspect for this time next year to have had a look at the strategy would be really good.
Yep.
Gotcha. Yeah, Terry.
Yeah, I'm keen to talk about the insurance side of it. Is these for all our assets, or is it just buildings and people, etc.?
These are all of our assets, infrastructure assets.
Because we talked about it at some length around what assets we think we need to insure and what assets we think maybe we should let them run their term. Has there been some work done on that at all?
Yes, we go through line by line with all of the managers around that,
Right.
and they make the decisions on that sort of stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Bear in mind, that's a really important part, Terry, but bearing in mind that obviously from our total insurance program, our public liability and what have you is where, a lot of our risks lie. And obviously the coalition government's announcements yesterday, for instance, start to play directly into an area that is big for us, which is obviously the joint and several over building consents. So it's your point, we have to watch this space. Okay, great. Thank you for that. Any other questions on Taku's assurance report? Cool. Well, we received the report. Do I have a mover and a seconder, please? Thank you, Len. Thank you, Martin. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Taku, the risk report, please.
Hey, I've just got Jeanette coming to join me. There's a couple of, I'll take the report as being read. 2 things that I just want to highlight. We undertook an operational risk assessment with the governance team, in fact, and that was a really worthwhile process. There's always an escalated risk around the process of the elections, and so making sure that we follow proper processes and ensuring that our governance staff is supported through that time. They identified a couple of things around personal confrontation. They identified where we're actually in terms of meetings and things, and making sure that we have security at some of those meetings. So that was a really good process. Now I'll just turn to the strategic bow tie risk assessment for iwi engagement and participation. We used 3 perspectives around this, and this was around what does good engagement, our understanding of what that looks like, drawing on our collective experience in iwi engagement, and that was with Jeanette's iwi engagement and her team. And actually, what do other local authorities have? So if there are any questions, I've got Jeanette here, and we're happy to kind of.
Welcome to the meeting, Jeanette. Great to have you here as well at the front. Thank you. Yes, Terry.
Hi, Jeanette. Hi. Yeah, I'm keen to talk about the iwi engagement side of it and understand really over the time that I've had involvement with iwi, they really want to engage at certain levels. They just don't want free-for-all talk. So can you give us some guidance on, should we be talking at certain levels when we're talking to iwi and let them talk within themselves and come back? How does this work?
Thank you for your question. It can work in lots of different ways, and probably the best way for us to find a way forward is to actually ask iwi how they want to work with us. But I think the main point of sort of having a look at this part of our work is to ensure that when we need to have the bigger conversations with iwi leaders, that we have a mechanism and a way to be able to do that, or that councillors have a mechanism and a way to be able to do that from at a governance level. At the moment, we don't have that. You might have individual relationships, and you might have individual ways that you are in touch with iwi, but as a council collective, you don't have a way to or a mechanism or a forum to meet with iwi leaders and discuss some of the bigger issues that you might have coming up to make decisions. So that absence of that kind of forum we've identified as a risk. And there are lots of operational sort of meetings and conversations, and I've started to get my head around what some of those look like. And they're good for keeping iwi up to date with the day-to-day, but the staff that are managing those relationships are not able to bring in any other more strategic conversations into those groups. And so that gap of that sort of strategic conversation and relationship at a governance level is what we've identified at the moment. Staff are sort of managing kind of everything and occasionally having more strategic conversations, but is that appropriate or not is sort of where we're at.
So that's saying that governments needs to do some more heavy lifting in this area. It's really what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. Not that nothing should happen between now and the elections, but that will be a challenge, I suspect, Jeanette,
Yep.
the new council to pick
Absolutely.
up A, the strategy, and B, the fact that governance to governance is as important as what you folk are doing. That's really useful. Thank you for that, Terry. Has you got other questions or comments? Yes, Stelly.
That's awesome to hear. Thanks, Jeanette. So we've had our cultural navigators team, Frank and I, for a little while. How do you see this thinking incorporating that mahi that they already do? So definitely it's strategic, but what role will our cultural navigators play in that?
Thank you for that question. At the moment, we have our cultural navigation team, but also other staff across the organisation working in that space. And so currently, I'm working with those who are working already in the iwi operational space to sort of understand what that looks like and get more visibility across that. I've started having some discussions with some of the, I guess, senior iwi leaders, or no, not at the sort of full governance level, but some of the CEOs across different iwi organisations to understand what kinds of conversations need to happen at what kinds of levels. As far, I guess, as the cultural navigation team, their part in all of this is to help sort of design up and think about what's required in terms of cultural capability in different parts of the organisation and at governance level to support those relationships. Yeah.
Thank you, Deli. Yes, Peter.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for both of you for the report. On page 34, the item 6 on the bow tie, the decision to create a Māori ward may be a positive move. I suppose I'm curious as to why we're saying it may be a positive move. I would have thought, firstly, that it would have been a positive mood, or what is it that is not there that means we can't confidently say it's a positive mood? That's the first thing. And the second thing, the referendum, it's suggesting here that it might adversely affect the council's reputation, and yet the referendum is outside of council, it's with the public. So I'm not sure why that could potentially adversely affect our reputation.
Thank you for your question. Just to go back to the first question, that box number 6, and it says the decision to create a Māori ward may be a positive move towards developing governance relationships with iwi. We did this last month.
Yes.
And so it really does, it depends on who is in that role as a Māori ward councillor as to whether or not it has an impact on your relationships with iwi or not. So because we don't know, when we did this, who would get that, who would be in that position. It may have a positive impact depending on the role. Yeah. And the other question, what was the other question? Oh,
Yeah, based on the
so yes, I understand that the referendum is out there with the public, but the decision that the public makes will also, there will also be, that will also impact on council. And so if the decision that the public makes is not to go forward with Māori wards, that's still a decision that council will have to manage in terms of perception, in terms of you know, what some parts of the community agree or don't agree with. It's still a decision that will impact on council, regardless of it not being your decision. Yeah.
Yes, so very, I mean, without wanting to, I mean, I hear you, the direct point you're making, Peter, but this does come back to also your first point about an action here, which is actually what is the strategic position we need to take or want to take as governance relative to our relationship with iwi and how to develop and foster, for which Maori wards are clearly, you know, a potential, if not a good component. Okay, any other questions or comments? Both, we're obviously dealing, and thank you for this analysis and work you've done this one, Jeanette, around the iwi engagement and participation, but also the rest of the paper. Yes, Martin.
Also on page 34, point number 5, in the pre-event mitigations column, the last part of it talks about staff doing some monitoring of the treaty settlement process. However, staff are not resourced to do this work. And I know that as a council, we voted last year to not include a budget line for that. At what point in this current financial year is there an opportunity for that to be re-examined? That's probably a question directly for Aileen through the chair.
Okay, so just going back in time, staff did request, I think, 100,000 to resource up, but I don't think we described what needed to be done sufficiently well. Subsequent to that, we have put together some information around just the scale of what actually needs doing and what those tasks are. I think we did agree that we would find the resource within existing budgets. And we haven't done that at the moment, so that is something we need to do. But I think going forward, we definitely need to up resource in this area, and whether that's at a cost to other parts of the organisation or whether that we come to council with a bid for additional funding is something we need to decide in the coming months, either for the annual plan or the next LTP. Probably also affected by the speed at which the settlements are going through. A settlement could appear and we're suddenly needing to do a whole lot of work. Ideally, we would have done that work before the settlement appears, and so we know what we're up for and what we need to do.
Thank you.
Jeanette, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, the only thing I do have to add is that this work will help us understand that piece of work as well. At the moment, where there's not that level of clarity across all the different kind of pieces of components of this work. And I think this work will help us with that issue. Yeah.
Thank you.
Perhaps just to round that out then, I mean, we're not a committee that can commission spend. We don't have that ability to go to the financial authority. So when I look at the risk bow tie, Jeanette, and I go right to the top box, which says actually there's a level of medium risk around this, which I agree is a question: are we comfortable being in a medium risk, or indeed do we do this work? Is it the intention of management that you will pick up and act on these 6 or 5 points of action at this point?
Yes, this work sort of is already underway.
Right, okay.
And part of this work also fits under the development of a strategic stakeholder engagement plan. which is another piece of work underway already as well. But in order to do that stakeholder engagement plan good justice, you need to have done your work in this iwi space as well. So it's work that's sort of driven from a number of different angles across the organisation.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, no, that's fine. I mean, it's classic case, isn't it, about actually how do you put this all together, and well done to you guys that you're picking it up, because I think the critical thing is that I from my reading, pick up the point that those 5 steps are ways to mitigate our risk associated with this. So the question is, are we in a position to actually act on it? Your point is certainly at that strategic level clearly is the entry point you are now. So that's great news, because it actually gives us a start on this, which is really important.
Great.
Okay. Yes, Terry.
Yes, I'm really interested around the treaty settlements and where we sit with them, because back in 2021-22, they were talking about a year out to get them done. We're at a stage now where I think they've still got a long way to go with the issues that we've currently found just through the waters discussion. There are strong feelings about what's happening with those. And in my discussions with iwi, with John McIntyre, and there's that they know what they're doing, they're heading in the direction, but this is between the government and them working through these treaty settlements. So while we can offer some support, I don't know what else we can do to make their road easier, but I see that there is some time to go before these get over the line, which is difficult, because when the treaty settlements are finalised, it will give them some certainty about what they can do and what they can't do. Have you got any discussion or any further advice about where we are with those?
Thank you for your question. You're correct that where treaty settlements currently sit with Hauraki is between the Crown and Hauraki. They've had their initial settlement initialed in Parliament, and they're kind of waiting for the next step. And there are other things happening, obviously, and this council has become aware of that through the waters discussion. And what we can do in support of where things sit now and heading into at some point in the future when settlements actually are finalised, is really kind of be ready internally for that final settlement. You only have to look at what happens elsewhere when iwi start to settle, and the benefits that the entire district can have as part of that settlement. But we need to have the relationships in place to be able to have those conversations about the wider benefits for the district by partnering and doing other things with iwi. But if we don't have our house in order to be ready when they settle, then we're on the back foot. They're ready to go. So it's about developing those relationships, making sure those relationships that we're building those relationships now and ready for that future time when iwi have the opportunity to invest in this district in a way that they have not been able to in the past.
Yeah, I think that's the right direction. Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. Any other comments or questions?
Just want to ask this, what concerns me is if the ratepayers vote against a Maori ward, that's really going to set us back a hell of a lot. And I know there is some strong feeling which I just can't tolerate, but that's what some people are like, and they seem to be winding each other up. So how is that going to affect if we actually say no more Maori ward, and the one person we have on does a brilliant job? Well, he's going to probably have to stand as an individual after that. But that's what's concerning me, the future, if we vote against it, and how we're going to deal with that.
Thank you for your question. I think it's the same answer. If you start your relationships and build on those relationships with iwi, and they will withstand whether there's a ward or not. So that's the answer to the future, really. You build your relationships, create strong relationships that can withstand whatever sentiment is out there in the in the district around anything Māori. But if you have those relationships first and foremost, then they will withstand all of that. You know, governments make all sorts of decisions across the table, and relationships count. Yeah.
Thank you for that, Gary. Thank you, Jeanette.
If I could just have one quick one.
You go for Terry.
We went to Local Government New Zealand conference, and Ngāi Tahu's relationship down the South Island was amazing, what they had with the local councils. And that was a relationship that I thought was very powerful and very inclusive, and the benefits came to both sides. So, yeah, head in that direction looked good.
Yes, as a resident of the South Island, they're a big player in the way that you're talking about. Once settlements occur, their influences for the benefit of the community wider, not just iwi. So it's tremendous. Paku, I did actually just have one question, please, about the weather event resilience. So I appreciate the fact that we're following through. Everything's complete there. Is weather event resilience, other than at a general level, a particular risk for us now? We've completed the mitigations. My point is, where does it sit now with us? Yeah, it's an operational issue now. Yeah, so look, no big drama. Again, I think probably as we head towards a new triennium, it will be useful for us just to revisit where we're at with our strategic risks, bearing in mind the good control that exists over this. So that's great. And just to possibly answer my question around, you know, what is the response to the iwi engagement participation risks? I also acknowledge that you've got them sitting here under our to-do list, if I can call it that, and we can monitor how that's going, bearing in mind that we're not making a call about money being devoted on certain places, but you'll tell us how those things go, which is tremendous. So that's a really useful report. In fact, I just want to thank Jeanette, who's had the front up over the risk. I'm grateful to actually hear from the risk owner as far as that's concerned as well. So my deep appreciation. Gully, do you have no. So my deep appreciation for your time with us this morning as well. We understand where the risk is slightly heightened. We can do better. We've got a plan to do better, which I think is wonderful. So I'm looking then for, despite you doing the good work to get me to where my recommendations are to receive the risk report. Seems incredibly small. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Dali. I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. I think we've got time to get the debtors report out of the way. If not, the Treasury report before we break for morning tea, which I'm sure you're all keen to do. Hayden, how are you, buddy? Good to see you here. Sorry. Wendy. It's Wendy, isn't it?
It's Wendy.
Wendy, welcome to the meeting. You may have been the last one. Apologies if I'm trying to reintroduce myself, but it's also great to have you here too. Thank you. Hayden, we're in your hands, please.
Probably the chair, I'll take the report as read. I suppose the key highlights for the debtors reports, as was mentioned at the June council meeting, was just how we finished basically the year. We finished in a pretty good position, really. As a percentage of revenue, the percentage came down on the previous year as per the graph in the report, which is pretty positive. Yeah, and in the sundry debtor space, we've been doing lots of work in that space. And if you look at the 3+ column, that's coming down too. So still work to be done in that space. But it's like Wendy and her team do a lot of work. So, they really need to sort of get the pat on the back, really. Basically, the way it works is we sort of have monthly meetings where we get together and we look at, our especially in the rates space and the sundry debtor space, we look at our sort of tricky debtors and we come up with a plan about how we're going to go about sort of, collecting that debt. And, in the rate space, it may be, progress to rating sale, or if it's an abandoned land, progress that. And, there's all the stages that you have to go through before you get to it. And most of the time, as we go through that process, we actually end up collecting the debt, so it doesn't go all the way through. So, yeah, happy to take any questions on that.
Brett, who's going first? Terry and then Peter.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the report. External debt agencies, can you tell me a little bit about when it goes to them? Obviously, do they spend time on it, and if it don't work, they write it off, or what happens?
Yeah, so they spend time trying to collect it. They don't write it off. We're the only ones that would write it off,
Right.
Because it's our debt. But they basically will, try and collect through their different collecting mechanisms. So they'll potentially send out letters, make calls. What else? Basically try and collect that debt.
So the 41 accounts that are currently outstanding.
Yep.
You think that they would settle those, most of those, or how does it work? I'm just trying to get the feel of where it goes to.
They will basically, if they don't settle them in terms of the rate space, we would then go down the rating sale process. So we would basically look to, initiate the rating sale process, which is,
Have you ever done one of those?
in my time here, no, but I believe in Wendy's time they have. Yeah.
Right.
I
Okay.
presume to be some intermediate steps though, like register the you register the debt, etc.
Yes.
So
does it get to a stage where you write some off? I just want to understand at the end of the day with the accruals with debts, do we find that some are just not worth the fuss?
If I could just respond to that. Generally speaking, with the rating, if they fall within certain categories, we will always go through a process to collect. There are some debts, of course, where decisions have been made not to try and pursue them. And an example I'm going to give, which is actually separately reported, is the 1877 area.
Yeah, I understand that. What about the sovereign society? If they don't want to pay, what happens?
My position is that we do have the right to collect. We have seen on more than one occasion now some of the other local authorities going through the process. We, I believe, are looking at direction from council on how they want to proceed with these because of the nature of the individuals we're dealing with and the threat it can put to both elected members and staff if we pursue these.
So will you bring something back?
Terry, can I just jump in here, please? If we want to talk about individual debtors, I think we need to go into PX. So I go on board the point that actually, there may be a point of governance where we need to have this discussion, but I think if we want to talk about individual debtors, we do need to be in PX for that. So if you want to
more about the process, I was trying to figure out.
I think the process is important that we need to, and that we can talk
and
about that publicly.
something to look at what you're preparing to look at those issues.
Okay, so in the Local Government Rating Act, there are very prescriptive processes that we must follow. So in terms of what we have currently externally, the majority of the debt is with Cavill Leach, and they are going through the required process through to rating sale at any point in time up to basically the moment the hammer falls, the ratepayer has the right to pay the debt, and we would not obviously stop that. I mean, our objective is not to take the home from them, it's to assist them to maintaining and retaining.
And do they pick up costs?
They do.
Okay.
Again, this is legislatively driven, so there is a point where we can start putting the costs to that specific ratepayer. My understanding of that point is when we're going through a judgment process. So initial costs, we have no right to recover directly, but as we do follow that process, depending on how you want to look at it, I guess, thankfully, we don't get to judgment with a lot of the debt. It's paid up front with the initial contact from Cavill Leach. We have also recently moved some of the debt from Bay Corp to Cavill Leach because we find we're getting a far better response rate from them.
I think, let me intervene here, Peter. I think it would be very rare that we would actually write off a rate debt. We have a remissions policy, and at times in PX, we have a discussion around remission of the imposition of certain rates set. But actually to write rates off would be, other than the other one that you already noted, Wendy, would be very odd, given quite frankly the power of the council under the Rating Act to collect. even if it's later at point of sale. The issue for us is clearly a treasury management one, which is actually the cost of not having that cash in the bank. That's the real thing. We will collect. I think it's really the sort of the mild point here, Terry. The trouble is it's just not at the right time. Peter.
I don't want the moment to get lost, Hayden, that achieving this is fantastic. It's a difficult thing to get to happen, and to see a reduction from down to that level of debtors versus rates collection is absolutely fantastic. So please use the opportunity to buy sausage rolls for your team and or whatever, because it is significant. Thank you very much. The second thing, and I picking it up perhaps through the narrative, but I'd like to think that the how also reflects the values that we hold. So we do it with fairness, with compassion, but with firmness, and that we do treat everybody with respect as in the process. And I think I'm picking that up, and I'm assuming that's what happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about either the rating or the general debtors position? Well, again, thank you, Wendy, for being here. It's always great to hear from staff who are at the coalface. So I don't know, you would have heard us talking about, for instance, confrontation with ratepayers. I suspect you may have some in your life as well. So thank you for the ongoing work that you do.
Yep, thank you.
We have a motion to receive the report. I'd move in a seconder, please. Thanks, Liam. Seconder? Thank you, Peter. Put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. I have a feeling we could deal while we've got Hayden here, and I think this is we could deal with the Treasury report before we break for morning tea. So Hayden, can we move on to the Treasury report, please? Thank you, Wendy. We can move on to that. That'd be great.
Yeah, again, I'll take the report as read. I guess the highlights are we did. I guess the main highlight is at the 30th of June, all of our Treasury policy limits were met per our Treasury policy, and in terms of Treasury activity, we did one swap, a $7 million swap at 3.695% to maintain interest rate coverage. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. So that swap covers off the slight gap we have at 2030 or 2031.
Yeah, the gap is a bit of a, on the graph, we're covered, but it looks like we're not covered. Brett's assured us we are covered.
I mean, I think the advice was once we got below 4, we were going to be in the game. I shouldn't use that. It sounds like we're trying to game or speculate, but it was at the appropriate stage to start looking at the quality of the swaps you get. Yeah, so at 3.695, we're in the right territory, aren't we? Yeah.
Yeah, that's sort of where we're aiming at. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. But do we have questions for Hayden here? Key message he had was that we're within our Treasury management policies, our prudential limits. Actually, the page 44 of the agenda becomes all the more relevant as we start to consider, you're doing more than starting consideration of water reform and the impact it'll have going forward. Yes, Terry.
Yeah, so Hayden, so as the water reforms come on, we'll drop into that yellow category line because we'll split the balance sheet. Is that right?
Now that this is pre all the sort of things that have happened, we'll have the same debt because it's going to be in-house. So we won't, I mean, it'll be two different buckets, but at a total level, it'll be the same. Yeah. Right. Like it'll still be our debt. Yeah. 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 It'll be just split. Yeah.
Yep. You've got to keep it separate.
You've got to keep it separate.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. But from a treasury management point of view, we'll still have to manage, both buckets. Yeah.
You're treated as one book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Got it. Yeah. Any other questions? Thanks, Terry. Any other questions or comments for Hayden? No, do I have thank you for that, Hayden. Again, it is, we're dealing with it quickly, but actually it's important to note that we are prudentially correct. As you say, it's somewhat important given it's the end of the financial year. Motion is that we receive. I'll move in a second, please. Thank you, Rika. Thank you, somebody else. Peter, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. I feel like we had a good start to the day. Thank you. It's 10:10. Why don't we take a break? How long do we normally take here, Jenna? We're about 20 minutes, are we? Past? Let's make a quarter of an hour, back up 25 past, please, so that we can keep our progress going, please. Yep. Okay, everybody, welcome, Glenn. I wonder if we could just reconvene, please. Okay, thank you, people. Appreciate the reconvening. That's great. Good to have the break. Glenn, welcome to the meeting. We're just we're post morning tea, so we're raring to go. So look, in very interesting report, and you've had some old colleagues, Warren Associates, running around the shop. So it'd be interested to hear what you've got to say.
So good morning, everyone. As you're aware, we're on an asset management journey, and it's something that I'm quite passionate about. So this report, I guess, is sort of a third in a progression of reports. So the first one was just a really high level overview of where staff saw risk exposure for council with asset management. The last report was around the maturity assessment, which is a way to say, are we really sophisticated or are we really quite basic with asset management? And that identified gaps. And then the challenge was, well, so what? And also a challenge was just passed back to staff at their last meeting around, well, you've suggested moving the goalposts in terms of the target level of maturity. Can you justify that a little bit more? So this report talks to that. There's a piece in there just explaining why we felt it was appropriate to move the goalposts for our more complex, larger asset portfolios. That being transport and waters. And then we engaged War Consulting to develop, interview all of our relevant key staff and get a brain dump of all the pain points and the opportunity improvements and compile that. And we ended up with a really, really long list of things to do. And it was a real challenge for them to get their head around resourcing it. So I would take this as just a really indicative first cut. And one of the tasks for staff now will be to lean into that detail and flesh it out and bring requests for funding to the next LTP. And so that's when it will we'll have the funding to start actioning the plan with a bit more resourcing. And as you will have noticed, I asked them, because the list was so long, I said, let's make this a 20-year plan. If we run at it for 10 years, we're never going to get there anyway. We'll have to ramp up a bit to begin with. We've got affordability challenges, but also too, I sneakily thought, well, if I pitch it at a 20-year plan, I'm more likely to have somebody tell me that's too long. Can you go faster? So there is an estimate in there for what it would take to action those through a 10-year timeframe. The level of sophistication behind that is the 20-year spend was doubled to give a 10-year timeframe. So.
Thanks, Glenn. That's really helpful, and as I said, a very interesting report. But do we have questions at this stage? Peter?
Glenn, thanks for the report and very fulsome. I must admit, I got to the end of it and felt like I just read a Dickens novel, which starts out something like, it was the best of times and the worst of times. And you read that and you kind of think, oh, I wonder what comes next. And right up front, you grabbed my attention on page 48 by promising me $20 million a year that this would save. And like Dickens novels, I got further and further into it, and I'm looking for and I just think if the reality of doing this is $20 million worth $20 million to us a year somehow, then we need to be able to follow those, join those dots. But by the time I'd got to the end of it, it just felt like a whole lot of activity and action that was requiring resource, requiring funding, and not being able to connect how that was actually going to deliver financial benefit to council. So it's not really I'm not sure if it's a question or a comment, but it didn't give me some confidence to say this is really what we need to be doing.
Point well taken. Yeah, that I've had to think a little bit more about that 20 million since I wrote it. I put in there crudely. The challenges. So I guess first thing, I've fully taken on board that if staff are going to come and ask for the money, this is an information report, so not a decision to be made. At the point where we're asking for money, we had better be able to explain the benefit that will be delivered in return for that. To unpack that 20 million, and that's probably a bigger number than it should have been, but it was a nice round number. Would take another Dickens novel, because there's all sorts of things going on there. Some of it is operational savings, some of it is not building the things that we might otherwise choose to build. If we, with a bit more information, we would know that's not affordable, or we need the money somewhere else. Some of it is about risk exposure for the community, which is really hard to monetize, and then it just turns up as real cost. So I guess really, take that number with a grain of salt, but I think that the underlying point that we own the biggest business on the peninsula, and we can't run it on the smell of an oily rag for the sake of the community. That doesn't feel like the best value approach, and somehow we've got to navigate that, and that involves resourcing staff and resourcing and challenging staff to make sure that there's really good discussion around that. So yeah.
Yeah, look, and I think I take out of that the point that you make that requesting funding at 700K a year or whatever it's looking like over a 20-year period, the business case will need to be a really solid business case that we can actually say, yep, this is really good way of spending ratepayers' money.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. Terry, then Martin, then John Morrissey.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. Look, I support 100% what you're trying to achieve here. I think back in the time when we employed AMON and got asset management improvement, we were trying to address this situation, and it drifted a bit and never happened. So what you're trying to do here is understand what we own, how good it is, and what we should decide to keep and what we should try to get rid of. And I think that it's the start of a program that should have happened a few years ago, but it's really great to see it's getting some energy now. And we need to be able to understand clearly what our assets are and how valuable they are to us. I know revaluations popped up and caused us issues, but we have to address that as we go along. So I want to see this thing move forward and have some traction on it, because it's our biggest baby to deal with, and this helps the PPM and what we're doing on the business the other side. It's part of a flow of information. Some assets we want to reuse, some assets we want to get loose, but some of them we need to understand. So I support this 100%. Thanks,
Terry. Martin.
Yeah, I was also looking at the two paragraphs at the bottom of page 48. I didn't necessarily see that a 1% improvement was going to be potentially a saving of 20 million, and I realise that you've said that it's crudely, but taking that "while the nuances" sentence out, I really feel that this is a crucial thing that our community needs to understand. The bit about building up over more than a century, $2 billion, this is a complexity that Nothing else comes close to. And then the longevity of our assets mean that we can make poor or bad decisions for quite a long time before those chickens come home to roost. So I don't know whether there's a way of somehow trying at some point to present this to those couple of paragraphs to the community, just to be able to say, hey, we've got 2 billion in assets we have to keep looking after. We can say, okay, well, we're going to have a very, very low rate increase, but we will just be building up that bow wave for future generations. So my question is, how can we try to get that this sort of information out into our community?
Have you ever seen an engineer try and have an interesting conversation at a party?
With themselves.
And unsuccessfully.
Quite possibly in the kitchen.
Yeah. I guess the LTP is where all of those trade-offs come together. So the risk, the what you want to do, and the what it's going to cost, and that's without committing other people who are responsible for that process around it. But I guess that's where I see, and inside that LTP process, if I can just go off script just a little, but I would suggest that it's really important that council writes a financial strategy and an infrastructure strategy that talk to each other. So what I see done, when I see that done badly in other councils, I'm not talking about here, but every now and then I get to ask people, financial strategy, who wrote it? Oh, me. I went and locked myself in a cupboard for 3 weeks, wrote it on my own, and when I came out, it was done. And honestly, that's the level of joined up thinking and that was a large metropolitan. So if you can encourage your staff that the financial strategy, which says this is how we're going to be financially sustainable and the impact that's going to have on levels of service, and these are all the pressures on our infrastructure and what we think good value for the community is, and hold those to intention, then you'll get a good LTP out of it.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Martin. John Morrissey.
Yeah, thanks, Glenn. And it is a good report, and it beggars belief that we haven't actually had something like this in place for a little while. Would this have actually helped us to discover, for example, the reservoir roofs that's got dropped on us a few months back at the cost of $2 million, the state of that? Would that have this helped pick that up?
Yes.
You're struggling, Glenn.
Sorry. Well, I'm just, without being super familiar, and I don't want to throw anybody under the bus, but the bottom line is that.
Well, and instead of using that specific example, will this help us find those assets that are failing?
So surprises are the result of either a lack of information or a lack of analysis. So the better the information you have and the better analysis that you have, the less surprises that you'll have, which means you can make better decisions, which is the better outcomes for the community. So if you've been surprised by a large capital expense,
yes,
it's because either somebody didn't know enough about the asset to warn you that was coming and plan for it, or
Yep. So this will actually give us better, more detailed information on each and every one of our assets and how they're
to the extent that we fund it. Yes.
Yep. Okay.
Thanks, John. Rita.
Hi, Glenn. So I think I just want to maybe take a little bit of a step back, and I absolutely support the comments that have been made here around the importance of good asset management and planning. And John actually raised one of the examples that I was going to raise. But do we feel comfortable? Do we have a handle on all of these assets at all at this point in time? In terms of what is our asset management really look like today? I can see what we need to do to go forward. And as we go forward, would that include things that we need to look at, like will it plan for all sort of technology advances and things that are happening in the different spaces of these assets? Or am I thinking too big?
Can you make it just, I don't think I quite got that. Can I just have another run at it? Just help me.
Yeah, so two things really. I want to have a level of understanding around what our understanding is like today of our assets. And I was actually going to use that exact same surprise scenario that we came up against at the end of last year, that John. So you sort of answered that. But as we go forward in this piece of work, does it help us have an understanding around how technology is changing in the spaces of some of these water plants and things like that, that I imagine are quite technical? And as it looks at these things, will it help us have a level of understanding of where we need to improve in those spaces? You know, even as something as simple as water meters and then smart water meters, and how that technology has changed since we've installed them. Will this piece of work give us that level of understanding?
Okay, so this piece of work has like 200 or 300 pieces of work inside it. So yeah. Just to step back a little, one of the challenges that council has right now is that, other than the role that I'm acting in, there isn't anybody in the organisation that has asset in their title. So we do asset management, but staff are trying to squeeze it in around other responsibilities. And it's usually operational staff, coalface staff, that when it comes time to the LTP, sort of pull on a bit of an asset management hat and try and write the plans and prepare the expenditure. We don't. What is more normal is to have a bit of a separation between BAU, so OPEX, keeping things ticking over, being efficient day to day, and roles that sort of are removed from that and step back and get to think about our assets like an asset owner. If these are my feel defensive about, these are my assets, I'm looking after them, and so have a planning hat on, but they wear that all the time. And at the moment, just the way we're structured, we don't have, there's a whole bunch of historical reasons for that. So one of the obvious things to do going forward is to ring fence some people a bit more and give them a bit more explicit responsibility around that planning, alongside some of the other technical and logistical improvements that would help. And then that would mean that you've got people who, when it comes time for a GM to come and tell you the story of, here's the pressures that we're facing at our treatment plants or whatever, it's been a slower burn to get to that point, rather than a knee jerk and a oh golly, we've been caught out, this is a surprise, we've pulled some stuff together, this is our best advice. You know, it's a bit of a long-winded answer to your question. The better we get at doing asset management, the better staff will be able to tell you about the risks, about what's coming down the track, and about saving the community or providing value to the community, because sometimes they're not always saving the money.
So absolutely, you know, go back to my first comment, endorse what has been said, and there is huge value in us doing this right as an organisation, because we have the biggest amount of assets, any organisation on this peninsula, and we really need to get a handle on them, and ASAP.
Thanks, Rika. John Grant. John, welcome to the meeting again.
Thanks very much. Good morning. I guess the first comment is I absolutely endorse the process that we're going through in regard to this. I think it's just you know, with the amount of assets that we have, I'm surprised that we haven't got a better understanding and position in regard to it. So, you know, somehow, and I am sure that this is part of what will be looked at, is how we embed into the organisation, and understanding that a large part of everybody's role is to keep an eye on the assets that we have, and that we have a constant process to review. And I think from a governance perspective, it raises issues as to why we don't specifically have more of an infrastructure overview in our governance aspects of council as well. So I'd just throw those, and I'd be interested in your comments around that level, because if it's left at an operational level, I don't think there's the degree of accountability that needs, and it leads to the surprises that we have seen over time. Now, my question is, in regard to the large percentage of our assets that are water-related assets, in regard to the three waters, how much of this is going to need to be work that is done sooner rather than later as a result of the restructure of our water services business, and how much of that will we be required to do over the next 12 to 18 months? Are you able to give us a view on that?
Oh, golly. No, I can't give you a clear steer is the short answer. Some thoughts, just, I guess first is the funding that's going to come for this improvement plan isn't really going to kick in until after the 27 LTP. So we've got a really tight funding envelope right now. And so that sets when the first tranche of major improvements will come through or begin. The second would be we're not going to be able to move the dial much in a hurry. So what I'm seeing other councils who are thinking about CCOs do is that really it's about being transparent and getting all the cards on the table, and everybody wanting to make sure that people aren't gaming the conversation around, allocation of shares in the CCO is going to be a really fun conversation for councils to come up with a transparent framework for that. And so that's what's driving, let's get all warts and all on the table right now. So John, I felt like your question was more about, are we going to have to get better at doing stuff? I think we're just going to have to, somebody's going to have to put a bunch of effort into really clearly defining where we're at, rather than moving the needle between now and a CCO is probably going to be the focus of the work. But that's outside my warehouse, so I'm please take that as speculation.
Yeah. Look, and my speculation would be I'd be really encouraging the incoming council to look more seriously at a governance level of at the infrastructure and assets, so that there's the correct level of governance oversight. So that would be my little contribution to the discussion.
Thanks, John. Terry, technically you're next, but Deli hasn't had a chance for a question yet, so I'd like to take that.
Yeah, Deli.
Totally endorse, and it has been raised before that what this council has lacked is an infrastructure oversight committee, and I think that should be first cab off the rank for whoever gets elected in the next term. Really good piece of work. Do have concerns about what it might actually cost, but talking about those the catastrophic failure. I know there was a water tank on Centennial Drive in Whitianga that burst its tummy in those water reservoir roofs. I am absolutely 100% certain, trust in the staff, that they know the life of the assets that they look after in each of their silos or departments, but you can't plan for catastrophic failure. So I think if there is that overview, it will help, but it won't necessarily stop something failing completely, which is still within its asset life. Like it might have a 25-year life and it's on year 18 and it's, collapsed completely. You can't always plan your way out of that. So 3 things there. infrastructure committee for the next term. Good piece of work, just want to make sure it doesn't blow out in budget, and also understanding that our staff, our operational staff, do a bloody good job, and I'm sure they know what the life of their assets are.
Thanks, Dali. Now, I think Gary and Robin, you've got a chance to have a question. If you've got otherwise, I'll take a second round with Terry.
We talked of Dickens, or I'm talking of Bob Dylan, the song, The Times They Are A-Changing. Now, when I first got into council, I didn't feel I wanted to drive all the way from Auckland for an hour's meeting and turn around and go back again. So I said to council, we need to get up a system in so we can do the Zoom meetings and everything. In the end, I got hold of Auckland City Council and they assisted our council just to get it up and set and running. And luckily, because COVID came, we had it up and running. Now, I know councils will help councils, but one of the situations is that as soon as you get something going, it becomes obsolete literally with the modern technology today. I know my son-in-law is an electrical engineer which has a company which operates around in the US and Europe, and he's the boss, but there's other people involved, and they do power stations, maintenance systems, and all sorts of things electronically, but they have to keep updating them all the time because the technology changes. And there is just so many changes happening. When you talk to him, you go, wow, he's just been back to New York again. They've done all these other things. You wouldn't believe how it moves on. And I know Auckland City Council have revamped their request for service system. And with a population of 1.8 million, they haven't got many more staff than we have. So all I'm saying is technology can be a great help. And that's the sort of thing that, and these whiz-kid people are in the big companies, but they are prepared to help. But all I'm saying is we've got to look at all the technologies that's there. And I get blown away when I'm told of something else or this water system we changed because of this and this and that, and it saved them $10 million a month. So all I'm saying is technology's there, and it's just growing and growing, and it's all a bit scary. But, just where does it start and where does it stop? The times they are changing.
Thanks, Gary. So, Robin, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah. Thank you. Glenn, this took me a long time to read because there were lots of really technical bits in it, and I really appreciated the opportunities you get to this fine level of detail. And I guess my only thought is that over the last 6 years, the councils that I've been involved with haven't had the courage to really take this forward. And whether that is taken forward in the next council through an infrastructure committee or just good governance is up to them. But I really hope that this work doesn't get pushed aside for the lack of courage to spend the money that we need to spend. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Look, so before we go to you, I just want to say that we have had a fairly good discussion. I've got a strong tenor that we're all roughly in the same spot over what would be desirable from this point going forward. So I'm happy to have a second round, but I do want to draw also the discussion to a conclusion because I think we've had a fair crack. So Terry, you first, and then I think Peter, you were keen to speak as well.
It is important. I think this is one of our key responsibilities is understand the assets that we manage. I think where you bring this to the table today, just before we start thinking about our future, but it gives you an opportunity between the next LTP to get people in places, properly engaged in understanding what's going on with the assets, because it's going to take a while to dig down into them anyway. It takes time and professionalism and money. So there should be money to make this happen. And I just listened to what John Morrissey spoke about, making sure we make the right decisions. We recently looked at a project over in Paranui, just to give you an example. Paranui skate park. 2 years ago, we put in the program for $470,000 upgrade, bowl it and start a new one. We went and walked and looked at it and talked to it, and we said, well, it doesn't look like that. They're going to do a geotech with some cracks around the edges. The kids were happy with it. So understanding those assets and making sure that we're making the right money and spending it properly is really important. So I support this 100%.
Thank you, Terry.
Hey, Glenn, so with the two big chunks, the roading and the waters, which is where most of the stuff sits, do our contractors hold all that information in their systems, or don't they hold it, all that information in their systems? Don't they have to know what all that stuff is, or is it, do we hold it all and we just tell them, go and do this, that, and the other thing?
I'm looking around the room for Mo. My understanding, so please take this with a grain. My understanding is that the contracts are focused on day to day, that there are some requirements around data supply about the assets and things like that. And if we wanted to pay them, they probably would provide that service for them to, if there's areas with, but my really strong belief is that knowledge needs to sit with staff and council.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter. It's a very good question. Perhaps it's one that we should explore more further as we go on, that we understand exactly what our contracting arrangements are. Okay, thank you for that, Glenn. That's really useful. My question would be at this point, before I make a comment, is what are the next steps from here? We are receiving this, I get that. We have asset management, data quality and reliability as a strategic risk. So not having the data, we're saying, is preventing us from our goals or our objectives as a council. So this must have high priority. What's the next steps from here? As you say, we're receiving this. Is it a business case? Is it a project plan to seek improvement data? What's the next steps, please?
I'm a little on the back foot because I'm not supposed to be here much longer. I mean, the LTP is the obvious place where we'll get drawn together, and I'm not sure what the mechanism is for bringing budget requests that in that process through here first. So, Aileen, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm kind of looking behind me at Peter Bridgewater, because going into the next LTP, we're going to be faced with the usual scenario, a whole bunch of projects to fund that people want, plus this thing that's you don't see the results of for 10 years, 20 years, whatever. So the staff at the moment are trying to, you'll recall the below the line and above the line exercise we did, which was a rudimentary attempt to prioritise. In the next LTP, the staff are trying to look at a way of actually looking at the value of the investment as opposed to, I like that project. And this feels to me like one of those things you put alongside it. We do these, we've got these 10 projects, but we've also got this investment here. And actually the return on investment for this is actually significantly more than these other things that we might do. So I'm thinking it's an early discussion with the incoming council about priorities for funding in the next LTP. And Councillor Sinclair is quite right. It does come back to investment and the priority that the elected membership see that asset management has alongside the competing matters, things that could be funded.
Great. So really it is an LTP issue. So this is, to go back to John Grant's question, this does expose us when it comes to any potential water reform, well, not potential, the reality of water reform, and actually a bunch of people potentially, if we, depends again which option happens, demanding information on our assets. Because if I go to page 96, roading and water is in every aspect behind target and where we want to be. Okay, so that's the strategic challenge. The other thing is our planning, and as a sector, I try to say this as a sector, because you put I think the OAG ones in there reflect that actually nothing goes down. Peter, you won't save $20 million. You won't save $20 million in cash off for the ratepayer. What we should be looking for is how do we maximise the spend we have got to do. That's the risk we have, is that we aren't spending our money well, efficiently, I suppose, but effectively. So we're looking at that $20 million gain that we will still have to spend whatever level we do on an annual basis, but actually we're not building up liabilities that will come back and bite us somewhere down the track.
So in a sense, what I'm taking from this is that the money we spend, we're going to end up getting $20 million more benefit from it because
Yes,
we're spending it
absolutely.
smartly, efficiently, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the scary thing about the OAG numbers is that every year we predict that rates will go down and level of investment will go down, and every LTP stays high. So, I mean, I think the bottom line is that as a council going forward from a financial strategy perspective, by the way, Glenn, I haven't had my crack at engineers, which I tend to have over this, but your point is well made. Us accountants also have been rather tight in the reins. We will always have to spend a certain level, and it's going to be in the quantum of millions. The question is, how do we maximise that relative to our asset base? Okay. So look, that leaves us some. Can I say this slightly, Glenn? It's not your problem. It's not yours either at stage, Aileen. Just reflecting that actually this is a call to do more, to do better, and it's got an inherent improvement program, if not explicit, behind it. But at this stage, we can't attack it, wrong word. We can't move on it until we have had an LTP discussion. Is that in effect the story? Right. It's sobering. It's sobering. Okay. Well, look, I think in that case, I can't take it any further in this at the moment, other than that risk. The risk that we have, data integrity, effective asset management decisions in some way is diluted until we can make a decision to improve. So I just think we should be aware of that. Peter, you want to make a comment on that one?
So I think it goes back to comment that what we're about to do, creating an in-house business unit for our water services organisation. Everything we do in there, needs to be had with an eye that this is what we're wanting to do around assets, so that we don't in a year's time or 2 years' time redo stuff that we actually could be doing or that we need to be doing as we set up WSO and the internal unit. So my understanding is that we're going to have an investment to set up the internal business unit, and therefore we should be making sure that anything we do in that regarding assets is meeting the requirements that we have in this plan as well. Yeah.
Well, let's reflect as we go forward, because I think we've had a pretty good crack at this. Let's reflect actually that we have got good staff doing good work, and there is a level of asset management. This is a call to do better, to enhance what we do. The risk is that there's a level of flying blind in our key asset areas. So,
Reece, I think just a comment is that I think Glenn's pointed out the fact that we are lacking some skill in that, Phil.
Oh yeah, agreed. Yeah, no.
So we should be thinking about that up front.
Yeah. I think what I'm trying to say is we have asset knowledge, a level of asset knowledge. The risk is, like many councils, and I'm not trying to make this palliative, it's in the heads of our staff. And that is inadequate. They will do individually, generally good work, but we don't have the corporate capacity to either understand, record, or actually make the big calls on where to invest our money best. We can't have that assurance. We may be making those decisions actually, but it will be more by happen chance rather than by actually good detail. Okay, that's as I say, sobering, because it's an outstanding strategic risk, which Paku, you're still here behind me somewhere, you might well be listening to as you think about our strategic risk environment. The requirement for us is therefore to receive the report at the stage. I've got hundreds of people, Robin, and I've got Rika, please, that we receive the report. I'll put that motion, please. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against? It's carried. Glenn, thank you for that. If your time's up, thank you for your work and appearance in front of the committee. It's great to have this report, even if it has to lie on the table. I doubt the thinking that comes with this is going to be delayed a year, but even if our action have to be delayed a year. So
Certainly a vote of thanks from the councillors for the efforts over the time you've been here. Been really good to work with you.
thanks, Dan. Appreciate that. Can we move on? Oh, yes. Yeah, go for it.
Just 2 comments, just to remind you, that was the satisfying one of the chief executive's KPIs for the previous 12 months. So thank you to Glenn and the team for helping draft the KPI in the first place, then satisfying it. The second thing, I just wanted to draw the link between the amount of information in people's heads and our staffing, succession planning and our overall workforce. So that linkage, which is also on our strategic risks list around our people.
Thank you. That's good, helpful comments. Thanks, Glenn. Right, I wonder if we could move then, please, to the elected members' expenses quarterly report. Again, we're looking at expenses, welcome Rita, which I assume have all got, well, I know in some cases have all gone through a normal process. As a council, this is just shedding daylight on where the money is spent, plus also a sense of, have we got the balance right? Rita, any comments you'd like to make?
Yeah, I'll take the report as read, and I just wanted to note that for the community board, there are other on there that was for some annual volunteer events and an opening of a playground.
Thank you. Do you have any
Any
questions or
questions?
comments folk would like to make on this? Seems. Thank you, Deli. Do I have a seconder? Yes, thank you, Terry. Seems reasonably straightforward to me. Thank you, Deli. Appreciate that. I'll put the motion that we receive this report. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against is carried. Thank you, Rita. Appreciate that. Radio, it's now time for us to move into public excluded. You've got a few matters there that we would normally do and I think are appropriate to deal with in PX. So I'm going to move from the chair that for the reasons stated in our papers we do. So thank you, Terry. Is there any discussion on that motion? There being none, I'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye. Those against, it's carried. Thank you. Right, if we could just get a bit